I've been blogging since July 2003, so I've certainly got a lot of experience in that area. And in this video, I want to share a few tips and pointers for perhaps those who are thinking of starting blogging themselves. I've jotted down a few pointers there, headings, so I'm going to work through those in this video. First of all, before you start, I think it's good to check out what your motive is. What's your reason for blogging? There can be many, of course. You might want to become famous. A lot of people want that these days. So that might be why you want to start blogging, to get noticed. You could perhaps want to, and this is one of my reasons, to inspire people. I love to do that. It's great when you challenge ourselves or we challenge others through what we write and how we come over, and then you get feedback. For example, someone contacted me recently out of the blue and said, "You got me into fishing a couple of years ago and I'm still going strong." That brought me a lot of pleasure. So it's a motive if you want to inspire others. You might want to use your blog as an online diary, your own personal diary. When I was a kid, like many people, we used to write diaries and the things that we did and got up to. For me, one of the reasoning points behind my own blog is that I like to look back on things that I've been up to. So for example, I might be thinking about a particular town that I visited on holiday, so I'll get in search engine and have a look at the video, and I enjoy looking back on memories. Many reasons, but check with yourself, think about it. What's the reason for me starting to blog? What's the motive for getting into the wonderful world of blogging? And I would also say as well, it's up to you what you do with your blog, of course, but I would say beware of negativity. If you want to start a blog to attack someone or to rant or to have a go at people, have a pop at people, that's fine because it's your blog. But what I would say is that all of that would be short term. People will follow it initially, but in the end, you won't keep a long-term following if that's what you really want. Well, some people do, perhaps famous people or journalists who just continually pile out certain stuff. But for most of us, we're not going to really keep people's interest if it's all negative. So I would say keep it positive. Prepare. Obviously, part of the thinking of as to why you want to do a blog, part of that is to prepare. Give it some thought. If you're watching this video now and you think to yourself, great, I'm inspired, I'll start a blog in 5 minutes. Give it a bit more time. Give it a few days or weeks or whatever, so that you can, in your mind and maybe on paper as well, have a plan of action. When I began blogging in July 2003, I'd already given it some considerable thought. I didn't rush into it. In fact, the term blogging wasn't known, or certainly not by me at that time. And my site was called Stuart Blaw's Angling Journal because that's what it was. I had a very clear plan of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And next point, platform. Back in those days, I had some web space and I bought a domain name. I think it was anglingdiary.com. And I used to post on there and construct an entry every Saturday. And then as time went by, I discovered or came across WordPress. That was in April 2011, and I switched everything across to there. And it's been great. It's really worked for me. It does everything that I wanted to do. So I would certainly recommend having a look at WordPress. In fact, if you have a look at my own website, my own blog site, that's on WordPress, obviously. And you can see how I've been able to construct a site with a landing page and links and a menu and other features on there, as well, of course, as the blog entries themselves. But think about where you're going to post your blogs once you start to publish them. And then I would say make them regular. That's important. I look at angling blogs in particular, and I've actually got a page on my website, the A to Z of angling blogs, where I've been working through the internet and taking other fishermen's blogs and putting them on there and building up a resource. And some people haven't posted for weeks, months, even years. And if you have a blog and you want it to become popular, one of the key things is to make it regular. Back in the early days, Stuart Blaw's Angling Journal, the little tagline was updated every Saturday. And I did that for year after year after year. Faithfully, every Saturday, I published an entry about the angling adventures that I'd been up to during the previous 7 days. And people knew that. In fact, people used to see me fishing and they'd say, Stuart Blaw, we read your blog, we read your site every Saturday. We're on there to see what you've been up to. And people get used to that. You could make it every month, although I would say that's probably too far, because people will forget to come back if you only publish on a monthly basis. Mine has evolved, and I'll come to that later, but I now post on a daily basis. So now people, I'm sure, because I don't know the motive for everyone that visits my site, but I get a lot of people on there, very thankful of that. But I'm sure there are some folks who don't follow the blog, because you can actually follow it and get an email every time I post. But every now and then they must think to themselves, I wonder what he's up to. So they go on and they have a look, and they'll know that there's always something fresh on there when they visit the site. So make it regular. And this is where we need to give it some thought, because if you're watching this video, you're full of enthusiasm, you start a blog in an hour's time, and then you think, blog 10 times a day, I'll blog every day. The thing is, you can quickly get fed up of that. It can become more of a burden than a pleasure. And that's the important thing with blogging. All these years later, I still love it. That's the key. It's never a burden. It's not work. It's enjoyment. It's pleasure. It's not tedious at all. So start off perhaps every week. And then if you get into it and you find that you want to put more, perhaps then go for twice a week, like I did before. I started to add a few more until eventually it became every day. Be yourself. That's important. I think if you're an angler, for example, and you've only been fishing 6 months, and you're thinking, I'd love to blog about my journey, but I'm scared to because I don't really know anything. I've only been fishing a few months. Don't worry about that. In fact, that's a great angle to start a blog. A novice fisherman sharing his experiences or her experiences as they go through the journey of getting into fishing. That would be a great story. Don't worry about where you're at. On the other hand, don't behave like you're an expert just because you caught one nice fish. It doesn't mean to say that you're the best angler in the world. Just be yourself, be realistic, be honest with yourself, where you're at, and blog from a pleasure point of view. Likewise, I suppose, with grammar and understanding of writing and creativity when you express yourself. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone understands when to use your, or which is the correct your to use in a sentence, or it's. They don't know apostrophes. They're not really sure about those things. Don't worry about that. Just express yourself in the way that you feel comfortable. I will read anglers' blogs, and when I do that, I'm not correcting the grammar. I'm not working through to see how many mistakes there are in there. I'm reading it just to see what that fisherman has been up to, and to be encouraged and inspired and challenged and motivated to get out myself. That's what we want to do through our writing. So don't worry if you're not very good at spelling, or you're perhaps not that creative. I'll tell you what, when you start to write, things will improve, and you'll look back on some of your own blogs and you'll think, was that really me? I've come on so much in that time. But just be yourself. And then finally, as I've already used the word, evolve. Let your blog evolve. Mine started, as I've already said, July 2003, Stuart Blaw's Angling Journal, updated every Saturday. It was fishing. That was it. Every Saturday, 100% fishing. And then, as time went by, and I'm talking years now, recent years in fact, that I thought, I'm sharing so much on a Saturday. Some of these blog entries are quite long. I could divide them and maybe do a blog entry on a Saturday and a Wednesday. So I started doing that, and then, do you know what, I could put 3 out a week. And then I started to think, I'll share a little bit more of things that I'm involved with. So it developed to the point now where it's called Welcome to My World. And it's not just fishing, although angling is the mainstay of the content. It's not just fishing, but I work in football, for example, and I'll share my journey in football, work with players, managers, I do interviews, traveling, games, all that sort of thing. I'll share stuff in there. I'll also share when I go on holiday and I visit a particular town, and I'll take some video footage and write a blog entry on that town. I'll share nature, I'll share my bird watching trips, my walks and everything else. It is really welcome to my world. So let your blog evolve. Don't worry if you start something and you feel I'm stuck with that. You don't have to do that. You can over time, and you will over time, improve and enhance the blog and develop it. When I look at where my site is now compared to where it was in 2003, it's totally different. It's improved. That's the important thing. But above all, blogging is about enjoyment, unless, of course, back to the very first point, your motive. Maybe you want to become famous. Maybe you want to sell things on there. Maybe you want it to become more business-like in that sense. That's fine. It's up to us what we decide to blog about. Mine is just pleasure. I enjoy writing. I enjoy sharing. I enjoy looking back on my own adventures throughout life. Check out my website, because there will be a blog entry that includes this video, and there'll also be a comments box as well, so that you can maybe ask questions or share your own experiences on there as well. Plus, if you do decide to start a blog as a result maybe of this video or this particular entry, let me know and I'll share it for you. That's one of the important things. If you feel you're blogging to yourself, then that does become quite a discouragement. But you can share. Social media is good for that. You can share your entries on there, and then as you start to build up a following, it does become more encouraging. I'm at the stage where I've got lots of people that visit my site on a daily basis, so it does become a motivation to do that. If I'm writing all this stuff and doing all these videos and no one's looking at them, in the end you can think, why should I bother? But if we have a plan and we think it through carefully, we're regular, we get the stuff out there, and we target people, if you like, initially to get our blog known, then it does become something that becomes worthwhile. Happy blogging.